Good afternoon, everyone. Today is August 26th, and here we are again with a new community chat. This is Sandra Arevalo, Director of Community and Patient Education. I welcome you all to join us today, and I'm delighted to have great speakers today because we're going to be talking about something that is really important for a lot of people, which is Alzheimer's. We know that a lot of people can suffer with Alzheimer's these days, and it's not only the patient who gets affected, but the whole family. So for that reason, we want to have an in-depth conversation about, the warning signs and how to get it diagnosed, what to do if we see that a family member might be suffering from Alzheimer's. And for that, I'm not the expert. So of course, the experts are here with me. So we're going to start with introductions. So Tanya, good morning, well, afternoon now, and tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, good morning, and I'm so happy that you're presenting this program so people throughout our community can learn more about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, and even more important, about the things that happen to all of us as we age that are actually not warning signs of Alzheimer's, but we worry about them anyway. I am a volunteer community educator with the Hudson Valley chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. I am a retired nurse and a retired nurse educator. I taught for 35 years at RCC in the nursing program. And I am secretary of the American Nurses Association, New York chapter, and more directly related to Montefiore Nyack Hospital, I am a member of the Board of Trustees of Montefiore Nyack. Very proud that I was asked to join the board as a registered nurse and have been serving, I think I've been on the board now for 4 years. It's just been a wonderful experience. I think that's all I'll say about myself. Oh, how did I get to be involved with the Alzheimer's Association? Well, like many of you, my father had Alzheimer's, and like many of you, as Sandra said, it touches the whole family, not just the individual. And so after I retired, I was looking for things to do to continue my passion for teaching and to continue my contact with the community. And the Alzheimer's Association saw me at a fair and recruited me right on the spot. And I've been with them now for, I think, about 1.5 years.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much, Tanya. And next in my screen is Jody. So Jody, tell us a little bit about you, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having us, Sandra. We're so happy to be able to share this important information. I'm an employee of the Alzheimer's Association. I've been with the association for 6 years, and I've been affiliated for a very long time. I started a support group in 2000, I believe, in Yorktown. I was a support group facilitator for 5 years, and I've always had an interest in serving this population, and I'm very happy to work for the Alzheimer's Association and to be here today to share this information. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Last but not least, Teresa, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Aguilera, and I'm a Community Engagement Manager, Diversity Specialist for the Alzheimer's Association. I, like Jody, I do education programs, support groups, and I'm also I have a master's in social work. So sometimes I do care consultations, specifically for Spanish-speaking individuals. So just know that we do have staff that speak Spanish. So, and we are in an area where, there is a need for Spanish speaking professionals. So if you need us, I'm here for Spanish language services. And that's it. Thank you so much for having us today.
Hey, Teresa, you also put a link in the chat for a sign-in form. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that is about?
Yes, sorry, I almost forgot about that. I got excited. Yeah, so everyone, I did share a link on the chat. It's a sign-in form that asks a lot of questions. So please, if you are able to fill it out, do not feel obligated to fill out everything. I just saw in here someone says they don't see the link, so I'll share it again. But yes, if you're able to fill it out, just put your name, zip code, race, ethnicity, if you can, because that information is very useful for us. The grant, it's grant related from the state, and in return they do require us to collect this information. They want to see that we're reaching more diverse individuals. So if you could please at least fill those details out, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm going to share the link again. Thank you.
Just make sure it goes to everyone, because now I'm realizing you just send it to the hosts and panelists prior. So
got it. Okay, I will share it again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Now I see, a lot of you keep coming every Thursday. Thank you so much for doing that, really, for supporting our education program for the community. And you know that we like to make these community chats very interactive, but they really have a very wonderful presentation that is interactive and all of that. So in the interest of time, today we're going to go over the presentation first. However, please start sending all your questions. You can use the Q&A box, the chat box, and we're going to use the last 15 minutes to read all the questions loud to our panelists and get you the answers that you're looking for. But please, don't hold on your questions till the end. Just to start putting them in the chat box, because, I know that sometimes we think at the end, oh, what is that I wanted to ask? And we kind of forget about it. So that you don't forget, just use the Q&A and the chat. And now I'm just, let you do what you know how to do that I don't know how to do. So go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Teresa, could you also put into the chat box the all-important 800 number that operates 24/7 at the Alzheimer's Association, 1-800-272-3900, as well as the web link for alz.org, where our participants can find so much more information and many more presentations and information about dealing with Alzheimer's and help in traversing this very difficult challenge. Today, our learning objectives, I've had them up on the wall there so you could see them for a while. We're going to describe typical age-related memory, thinking, or behavioral changes. We're going to talk about what are the common warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, but just as important, what are not warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia that are very common events as we age. We're going to discuss tips for approaching someone about memory concerns. How do you start this conversation? We're going to explain the importance of early detection and the benefits of diagnosis, identify possible tests and assessments for the diagnostic process, and we've already given you information on some of the resources that are available through the Alzheimer's Association. So what are the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's? Before we even talk about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, there are two terms that you have possibly heard used interchangeably: dementia and Alzheimer's disease. They are very similar. In fact, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, but they are different. And I'd like to play some videos for you so you learn a little bit more about the differences between Alzheimer's, dementia, and why it's important, and why we're so happy that you participated in this program today.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. and frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
So what is Alzheimer's
More than
disease?
100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
So now let's listen to someone from the Alzheimer's Association tell you and point out why is it important to know these signs.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things. But when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with a doctor, to find out what you're dealing with.
So what are the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's? It's important for me to mention that this is a tool for you to help identify unusual changes in a person's memory, thinking, or behavior. This list does not constitute a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. They are simply the most common signs that you should bring to the attention of a healthcare provider. The first one is memory loss that disrupts daily life. One of the most common signs of Alzheimer's, especially early on, is forgetting recently learned information. Others include forgetting important dates or events, repeatedly asking the same questions over and over again within a short period of time, and increasingly relying on memory aids or leaning on other people to help you with things that you have always performed well by yourself. But a typical age-related change, as opposed to these possible signs of dementia, is sometimes we all forget names. Sometimes we all forget an appointment, but we remember them later, and we remember that we made them or that we knew the person. When I used to go to cocktail parties with my husband when he was in business, he always had to stand behind one of my shoulders and whisper the names of people as they approached us. I'm just not a name person. So forgetting names for me would not be an early sign of Alzheimer's. So you need to think about what your past life has been, and is a new behavior different for you or different for the person you are concerned about? Another typical related change associated to challenges in planning or solving problems is that we all make occasional errors when we're managing finances or household bills. But some people may experience new difficulties in what we call executive functioning, including developing or following a plan, difficulty focusing, difficulty concentrating. So this is different from occasionally making a mistake. This individual may have difficulty following a recipe or keeping track of monthly bills. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. A typical age-related change is making occasional errors when you're trying to use the settings on the microwave, record a television show, or I was just telling the group earlier, I spent 3 hours yesterday trying to turn the camera on this computer because I haven't used it before. I finally had to call IT, and IT said all I had to do was slide a little thing across the eye of the camera here back and forth. I was so frustrated, but I've never used the computer before, so that was not an early sign of dementia. But people living with dementia commonly have difficulty completing daily tasks, such as driving to a familiar location, or they drive to a familiar location, but can't remember how to get home, or organizing a grocery list, or if they have a grocery list, when they get to the grocery store, having difficulty finding the items, even if it's a grocery store that they usually shop in. Sometimes they will have difficulty remembering the rules of a favorite game. So these would be changes that would be something that we would be more concerned about. Confusion with time or place. A typical age-related change is getting confused about what day of the week it is or when a scheduled appointment is, but figuring it out later. This is especially common if you're retired. I need to look at the calendar every night before I go to bed to know whether I'm setting the alarm clock the next day to get up for a meeting or some sort of thing. And I check it again in the morning. What day is it? This has been my pattern throughout my life. So it's not an age-related change. But what would be of concern? What would be a possible sign of Alzheimer's? A person asks in the morning, what day is it? They ask multiple times throughout the day, what day is it? They lose track of not just dates, but seasons and the passage of time. They may have trouble understanding something if it is not currently happening, or they become confused about where they are or how they got there. Or they say, you say, well, you're at the mall, we're shopping for Christmas gifts. And they say, no, this is not the mall. This looks like a hospital to me. So something like that would be of concern. This change can become more and more dramatic as the disease progresses. Number 5, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. It is not unusual. We all experience visual changes as we age. They say that cataracts begin to develop at approximately the age of 50. Some people, they develop faster, some slower. That gives you a blurriness, a fogginess to your vision. But that is different from a person who has difficulty with depth perception or spatial relationships. And these visual changes can lead to difficulty with balance, trouble reading, and problems judging distance and determining color and contrast, which puts the individual at in a difficult position if they're trying to continue to drive. Oftentimes, a person who has early stage Alzheimer's is beginning to have minor fender benders, or they go to pull into a parking spot in a mall or a shopping area, and they scrape the car next to them, either getting into or out of the spot. Or they back out of the spot and get hit because they don't pay attention to what's going on around them because they're focusing so hard on trying to drive the car. These are all possible changes related to Alzheimer's. And of course, when a person begins to fall frequently, in fact, when a person just begins to fall, the person should be evaluated by a healthcare professional. New problems with words in speaking or writing. We all sometimes forget the word we're looking for, or we have trouble finding the right word to express something. But an individual who's developing dementia will have more difficulty following a conversation. They'll stop in the middle of a conversation and just walk away, or just stop the conversation, totally forgetting not only what they were talking about, but that a conversation was actually occurring. They continuously repeat themselves. The person might also struggle finding the right word, or they call things by the wrong name, or they might start calling it by what it looks like as opposed to what it is, or even make up entirely new words to refer to objects whose name they cannot remember. So this is again, another sign that you would want to have followed up by a healthcare professional. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace our steps. I can't tell you how many people will say to me, oh, I go into a room, I don't remember why I'm there, or I put my car keys down, or I put something down and I can't remember where I put it. And I will say, but do you have your car keys? Well, yes, I found them. Then that's not a typical age-related change. We often misplace things. You come walking through the door with the keys and the groceries in your hand, and the phone rings. Instead of putting your keys where you usually put them, you walk into the next room to answer the phone. You put the keys down there. When you go to get your keys again, they're not where you expect them to be. But you then remember what you did and you find your keys. So occasionally misplacing things and being able to retrace your steps is not an early sign of Alzheimer's. So what is? A person living with Alzheimer's will often put things in unusual places. They might do something like put the coffee pot in the refrigerator. They pour a cup of coffee, they go to get milk to put in their coffee, and as they reach for the milk, they put the coffee pot in the refrigerator and there it stays. So that would not be a normal age-related change. They lose things and they're not able to recall when it was they last saw it or when they last had it. They have lost executive function and awareness. The person grows increasingly suspicious of others and of what's going on around them. They often begin to accuse people of stealing objects that they cannot find because they have been put in an unusual location. A person with Alzheimer's develops decreased or poor judgment. They may experience significant or repeated changes in judgment or decision-making, such as using poor judgment with money or paying less attention to hygiene and grooming. This is different from a normal thing that happens to everybody. We've all made mistakes. We've all showed poor judgment. But we realized we had that poor judgment and we made a mistake. A person with Alzheimer's will continue to make the same mistake. Individuals with Alzheimer's are at high risk for phone scams and lottery scams. My mother-in-law lost almost her entire life savings when she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's to phone scams and lottery scams before we figured out what was going on. So it's very important to pay attention to what individuals who are living alone are doing with their free time. In addition, a person with Alzheimer's will often develop what we call no filter. They will say things that are inappropriate for the circumstance, and just as though it was a normal everyday occurrence. And people around them become upset and insulted with what has happened. But the person with Alzheimer's sees nothing wrong with what they just said. Withdrawal from social work or social activities. It's common as we age that we become a little less disinterested in family get-togethers, big social engagements at times. But there's a difference between withdrawing from social work or activities because you absolutely refuse to attend. This may be because the person with dementia or Alzheimer's has difficulty following a conversation. They stop practicing hobbies or things that they used to do. They lose confidence in the way that they engaged with others. If they were sports fans, all of a sudden they're no longer interested in the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox, whomever. Changes in mood and personality. This is often one of the signs that people that are close to an individual who's developing Alzheimer's notices. As we age, it is normal that we develop very specific ways of doing things, and we become a little upset or irritable when our routine is disrupted. However, a person with Alzheimer's or dementia will become angry and very frustrated and easily confused, or yell if something isn't done the exact way that they expect it to be done. So, and they get easily upset at home with friends, and especially when they're out of their comfort zone. They will resist doing things that they enjoy doing in a more social environment. So those are the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. So you are suspicious that somebody you care about may be developing Alzheimer's. So what should you do next? Let's talk about the importance of early detection and diagnosis.
You know, it's a very interesting phenomenon that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, paying attention. If they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot. And the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it. And they say, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
So any change that is unusual for your usual level of functioning or somebody you care about is a cause for concern. But one of the things that happens with Alzheimer's is a loss of self-awareness. So the person is not aware themselves of the changes that family members or close friends or associates may see. Let's hear from a caregiver and what she saw in her husband.
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
So what should you do if you see these changes in someone? And this is actually a very difficult step. If you continue to observe these changes, it's critical that you plan to take the next step and have a conversation with the person or others close to the person about what you've noticed. The Alzheimer's Association has developed this convenient 10-step, they're very much into 10 steps, roadmap for how to approach memory concerns. And on the alz.org or the 1-800 number, you can get even more information. Let's look at what the 10 suggestions are. First, ask yourself, what changes in memory, thinking, or behavior do you see? It may help for you to keep notes on what you've seen and how often they occur, so that when you attempt to have the conversation with the individual, you can actually refer to these notes so that it's not a question of, well, I only did that once. What else is going on besides the thing that has caught your attention? Often physical conditions or other diagnoses can cause changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. Are there other changes in health or lifestyle issues that could be contributing to the changes, such as stress, diabetes that is poorly controlled, any change in medication? And especially in this weather, and actually during the weather, another big issue is hydration. As we age, we lose some of our sensitivity to thirst. And the earliest sign of not drinking enough water or other fluids is confusion and some effects on the memory. So what else is going on? Is the person taking their medications for their blood pressure, for their diabetes? Is the person consuming enough fluids throughout the day? Learn about the signs and the benefits of early diagnosis. If you notice any of these signs in the person you're concerned about, then do something about it. You've taken the very important first step by attending this program. So we'll talk about the next steps in a moment. Find out if anyone else has noticed the changes that you've observed. Talk with other friends, other family members. If the person lives alone, maybe talk with a neighbor or the super or the landlord of the apartment or the building where they live. Do they frequently go to the same store, the same bodega, the same coffee shop every day? Do the people who work there, have they noticed any changes in the individual you're concerned about? Then you need to have a conversation. You need to decide who should have this conversation to discuss concerns. Who should be the one to do the conversation? It could be you, it could be a family member, another family member, it could be a friend. It's usually best to speak to the person one-on-one or maybe two-on-one. You don't want the person to feel ambushed or anxious or threatened because the whole family is lined up in front of them talking about the fact that they think that the person has memory issues. You want it to be a calm, relaxed environment when you do it. What is the best time and place to have the conversation? When should it be held? Where should it be held? You need to have it as soon as possible because, as we've already heard, early diagnosis is important. In addition to identifying the date and the time, think about the environment of where you want to have this conversation. Having it in a restaurant or at the mall is not a good idea because there's too much ambient noise in the environment, too many distractions. The conversation will not go well. So, and if you've decided you're going to have it next Tuesday, but when you arrive at your loved one's home or you sit down to talk with them, they seem upset, they seem agitated. Maybe it's an unusually hot or humid day. Be prepared to postpone the talk until a more comfortable, convenient moment. What exactly will you or the person having a conversation say? You might want to develop a talking list or a bullet list of things that you feel are important for the person to say. And how do you open this conversation? It's really difficult. Here are some ideas that the Alzheimer's Society has come up with. I've noticed whatever the change is. I've noticed a certain change in you, and I'm concerned. Have you noticed this also? Are you worried about it like me? How have you been feeling lately? You haven't seemed like yourself. You stopped going to the senior citizen center. You've stopped joining your friends for poker or mahjong. Or I've noticed that you've been losing things a lot lately and that your car has some scrapes on the fenders, and it worries me. I'm worried about you. Has anything else like this happened? Let's talk about it. So these are some ideas of how to start your conversation. As you talk about the changes, the person needs to see a healthcare professional. Offer to go with them to the doctor or the healthcare professional. Make it something nice, maybe an appointment followed by lunch, maybe lunch and then the appointment. Ask the person to go to a doctor and talk about what you had just talked about. They need a list also. There are a lot of things. You might want to say something like, if the person is resistant to seeing the doctor, you know, there are a lot of things that could be causing these changes. Let's see if the doctor can help us figure out what's going on. The sooner we know what's causing these problems, the sooner we can get them taken care of. Let's go to the doctor and find out what's going on. I think it would bring us both peace of mind if we went to the doctor and got a diagnosis so we would know how to deal with this going forward. When the person does see the healthcare practitioner, it's a good idea that an individual go as an advocate, not necessarily in the physical exam itself, but certainly sitting in the office and talking with a healthcare professional afterwards. And when you are there, take pad, take a pen, and take notes, because you'll want to be able to review with the individual what changes, what the doctor has said. Remember, the person is experiencing memory challenges. If needed, have multiple conversations. Don't be frustrated if the first conversation leads to nothing. And above all, don't be angry. Try to take some notes about what went well during the conversation so you can repeat the good parts, and what didn't go well so you can sneak the less successful parts in between. But whatever you do, don't stop. Don't dismiss the changes you've been noticing simply because the person is reluctant to address them or see a healthcare practitioner. And again, reach out for support. It may be very beneficial to you to turn to the Alzheimer's Association for more information and support. Again, 1-800-272-3900 is manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year with masters prepared clinicians that can help you work through this. And alz.org is full of information that will help you plan what you're doing next and give you some ideas. So finally, see the doctor. Most people address concerns about their memory, thinking, and behavior with their primary care physician first. However, in some cases, the physician may make referrals once seeing the individual for further evaluation. The individual might be referred to a geriatrician specializing in care of the aged, a neurologist or a neuropsychologist for brain disorders, a psychiatrist or a psychologist for mental health disorders. All of these people are skilled in dealing with individuals with Alzheimer's. So what are the benefits of early detection?
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Also, the treatments that are available for Alzheimer's don't cure Alzheimer's. They don't slow down the disease, but they do help with symptoms. And it seems as though they tend to work better the earlier a person is able to use those. So that can help too. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
So it's important for you to pay attention to memory changes that you see in an individual. Don't ignore them. Don't brush them aside. Consider the 10 steps, the 10 warning signs and the 10 steps to approach the person, and hopefully get them to see a healthcare professional. So when they do see the healthcare professional, what happens? Well, the examination will, of course, include a medical history. You may want to help the person fill this out because they may not remember parts of their medical history. And in fact, what is probably very beneficial is to sit down with the individual at home and write down the things that you know, because you've been to the doctor, are always asked in the medical history. What medications do you take? What over-the-counter preparations do you take? What surgeries have you had? What major illnesses have you had? What are your allergies? So questions, what vaccinations have you had? So these types of questions are typical, and you can write them down and actually attach it to the form or hand it to the receptionist when you go in. And that part of the medical history doesn't have to be filled out at the doctor's office. There will be a physical examination, of course, to see if there's anything else that might be causing the changes that you're seeing. The individual may be referred for screening for depression, or the healthcare practitioner can do a very short depression screening on site. And they may want to, the individual may want to ask you about what you've seen. There are various laboratory tests that will also be done to evaluate whether or not there are endocrine disorders like diabetes that may be causing the changes that you're seeing. Mental cognitive status tests can also be done. There is a very easy test that can be done by the general practitioner. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And this cognitive assessment is paid for by Medicare and, of course, insurance companies. Depending on what the initial examination finds, the person may be referred for further studies such as brain imaging, MRIs, or PET scans to rule out other problems with the brain. Oh, what about the Alzheimer's Association? What can we do for you? The Alzheimer's Association is all across the country. Our mission and our vision is a world without Alzheimer's. Our work is to eliminate Alzheimer's and to advance research into the disease and enhance care and support for all those infected, not just the individual themselves, but their family and their loved one, and ultimately reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia through the promotion of brain health. Think about it, a world without Alzheimer's disease. What a wonderful vision. Well, went too fast there, sorry. So let me play a little short videos from individuals who have reached out to the Alzheimer's Association and what they have found there.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple of nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
So Tim is a caregiver who has reached out to the 24/7 helpline, 1-800-272-3900. And let's listen to.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, there I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has this been around, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
So Teresa, as a early onset Alzheimer's, reached out and found so much support at the alz.org location. And here we have another individual who was reached out to the community resource finder for his Alzheimer's.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
So I'm going to leave this up, and that concludes my presentation. I hope it was of benefit to you and that you enjoyed it, and also the opportunity to listen to some of our experts and some individuals who are traveling the difficult path of dealing with Alzheimer's, either as individuals or as caregivers. So thank you very much for attending today, and I think we'll take some of the questions now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya, for this very comprehensive information. I think it was great. I have a couple of questions myself, but we're going to start with questions from the attendees. So please, if you have any questions, it's your time now to use the Q&A or the chat box, and we're going to be very happy to answer the questions. So here is one. Are there any preliminary tests to determine if Alzheimer's is in one's future?
I'm going to leave the answers to the experts.
So unfortunately, there's no test that determines 100% whether someone will get Alzheimer's or not. However, there are indicators that show that someone is at a higher risk, such as, like Tanya mentioned, having it in your family. That naturally puts someone at a higher risk. There are genetic tests that can be done. There are almost two different types of Alzheimer's. One that hits the symptoms present prior to age 65, which is younger or early onset Alzheimer's. And with that type of Alzheimer's, which affects a smaller portion of the population, not as many people get it when they're in their 40s, 50s, early 60s. However, there is a test genetically that can be done to determine if someone is carrying that deterministic gene. There is another test for the majority of the population who can get Alzheimer's at a later age after 65. And that is to see if someone carries a gene called APOE-E4. And with that testing, the person will know that they're carrying a gene that puts them at a higher risk. Does that mean they're going to get Alzheimer's? No. That just means that they're a higher risk, which they probably already know if it's in their family. So we don't always encourage genetic testing without talking to the physician and to seeing, is there a real value to it? Right now, there is a blood test being done that is still in clinical trial that will show whether someone has the amyloid plaque buildup in their brain cells. So we're hopeful that within the next couple of years, we just had a meeting last week, a research meeting at the association where we were hearing that there is a lot of promise with this type of testing, but it's not FDA approved yet. It's not 100% yet, but there is hope that down the road we'll have a blood test that will show whether we have that amyloid plaque perhaps build up in our brain cells.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jolly. Here is another question. I mean, you were talking about the 10 different steps. However, I'm wondering, do you need to have all 10 to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's, or do you have a number or a few of the 10 to be diagnosed?
Oh, I'm glad that you brought that up. You do not have to have all 10. And if you have one, it's not time to hit the panic button, depending upon how severe that one is. If a person is getting lost, for example, we talked about difficulty driving or difficulty knowing where you are. If a person is getting lost, driving to and from familiar locations, that to me warrants follow-up with a healthcare professional. So each of those signs can be a sign, but you do not have to have 5 of them or 3 of them or 10 of them. It's what you will notice is once you've noticed one sign and you start paying more attention, you will begin to be able to detect maybe more minor changes in some of the other areas. So I would say any sign that causes you great concern should be followed up, but you don't need 10, 9, 2, 3.
Okay. And you also mentioned, Tanya, that there are different tests that you can go to the doctor and they will do some like mental cognitive status tests.
Mm-hmm.
So, now online we find so many tests. Is there any of those, online that we can do at home or we can do for our parents, our elderly, to say, oh my God, this is a sign I need to really go to a doctor because of the results on those tests?
I think one of the things that I would always caution is what is the source of the test? And I'm sure Jody or Teresa will jump in with, more research related information on this. But for example, AARP is closely affiliated with the Alzheimer's Association. And so if you see a test about test cognitive function from the AARP website, I would certainly have some confidence that that would be a valuable starting point, not an end point, something to do to help you determine, yes, this is something I need to follow up more on. But if it's just some random website or somebody sent you a link, from some magazine or something, I wouldn't even bother opening that.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have to be careful, but nowadays definitely, it's so much that we can do from home, and then decide if this is really something. And so you just said it. The next step is going to the doctor. And you mentioned different doctors that are the right ones to diagnose Alzheimer's. It's not every doctor, right? We wouldn't go to an orthopedist for this, but I'm wondering, do you need a referral to go to one of these doctors? Like, do you have to visit your primary and then need a referral, or you can just make an appointment and say, I'm concerned that my father or myself has Alzheimer's?
That depends on your insurance. Some insurance policies always require a referral, even if you go for something such as a podiatrist, or some even require a referral to see a dentist. So you have to be aware of what the requirements of your individual insurance policy are. And of course, to check to make sure that your primary care physician takes the insurance, and that the physician that the primary care physician is referring you to specifically ask before you leave the office, does Dr. Jones, this geriatrician I was told to take my mother to, does he accept my insurance? And because the people at the front desk will probably already have a list of what insurance Dr. Jones takes, but it still helps once you get home to either go online or call the 800 number of your insurance policy and say, my mother has been referred to Dr. Jones. This is his phone number. This is his address. Does he accept our insurance?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question before we close today. And don't forget that we will be here again next week, and we're going to be talking about Project Hope, which is a project in Rockland County that is helping families that have been affected by COVID-19. So I expect to see you all there next week. But the last question is, are there any medications for Alzheimer's that help to prevent, delay the progression, or even cure the disease?
I'll leave this one up to our experts.
All right, so for many years, there has not been anything to slow down the progression of the disease. There have been medications on the market for many years to help with some of the symptoms, such as Aricept, Exelon, Namenda, Namzaric. There's some of the medications you've seen on TV for many years, and they do help some people with some of the symptoms, not slowing down the progression of the disease. Historically, if you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you have Alzheimer's and you will progress through the disease. It's very unlike most other types of illnesses. It's the 6th leading cause of death, yet there really is no cure at this point. However, this past June, a new medication was approved by the FDA called aducanumab, and it's also known as Aduhelm. And it is an infusion that's done once a month, and it can perhaps decrease the amyloid plaque in the brain cells. So it's very new. We are still learning a lot about it, and you know, it does bring us hope at the association, because there was always a hard no to the answer. There's nothing to slow down the progression of the disease, and now it's a more complicated answer. And you know, we have a lot more to learn about that medication and all of the other medications. Not only that medication is in the pipeline, so there are other medications that are in the process of perhaps getting FDA approval. So we are very hopeful that at some point there will be more to assist with someone who's diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But at this point, you know, that's our one new medication on the market that we can refer to. And, you know, there are some certain drawbacks to that. It is an infusion. It's not, you know, the cost is still being worked out. It's a very costly, and, you know, if anyone's going for an infusion, which does happen with some other types of illnesses, it's, you know, it's different than taking a pill every day. So, you know, we know that it's not the ideal solution, but we're hopeful. So that's, you know, at this time. However, I will just put a little plug out for our next presentation that Tani will be presenting in September on healthy living for your brain and body. And we do know that there are ways in which we can reduce our risk, perhaps of getting a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another type of dementia, and increase our overall health in general. So we will be providing healthy living for your brain and body in September with you, Sandra, here at this community chat. So we thank you for that opportunity.
Exactly. No, we're very excited about this topic, and thank you so very much. We'll run out of time, unfortunately, but I see you again in September. And I like that you finished with There is Hope, because that's also the topic for our next week's community chat. So thank you to all of our attendees for being with us today. Thank you so much, you girls. Thank you for all the information shared today. I'm sure lots of people are going to be reaching to alz.org today or in the coming days for more. I will be sure to do that as well. Thank you all. Have a good week.
And thank you all for attending. Thank you so much. Have a good day.